Welcome to the Raw for More podcast, where we show you how you can play to win without burning out. I'm your host, Marilies de Villiers-Vasson. So if you have this sense that there must be more to work and life than what you're currently experiencing, you've come to exactly the right place. You're caught in what I call this MOAR paradox, constantly striving for more and never feeling enough. And so you're successful on paper, but you feel empty inside. You know something needs to shift, but you're not sure where to start. Well, start with you. Begin with you, as Petra, our guest today, would say, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But yeah, this is about you are meant for more, and you are more than enough already, right here, right now. And so when we learn to roar for more, from the inside out, magic happens. So welcome, Petra. Really great to have you with me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
And so Petra is one of the world's leading voices on workplace mental health and digital well-being. She's a psychotherapist, 2 times now TEDx speaker, and also the author of 2 well-being books. Begin with you, surprise, surprise. So invest in your mental well-being and satisfaction at work. And then digital well-being, which is her more recently published book, Recharge Your Focus and Reboot Your Life. Petra, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. As you know, I've just published my second book, MOAR, How to Play to Win Without Burning Out, just last week, in fact, the 26th of February, 2026. So yeah, usually I'm the one asking the questions, but now we're going to flip the script today because Petra is actually going to put me in the hot seat and ask me some questions. Petra, please be gentle with me.
Well, I can't promise that.
To you.
Well, I'm excited you asked me because often I'm the one, again, kind of being interviewed, and it's so much fun to dig a little bit deeper into the concept for the book. I mean, I'm seeing so much burnout, so much overwhelm, and I think many people are a little bit lost when it comes to work. So let's kick off with what compelled you to write the book MOAR? Like what's are you seeing that sort of inspired you to put it all on paper?
So I wrote Roar, How to Tame the Bully Inside and Out. That was published back in 2019, and that first book was really because of my deep, dissatisfaction or deep, I even want to use the word disgust, with what I saw happening in the workplace around workplace bullying. And I really wanted to put a spotlight on that. And so, never was the intention to publish another book, but, as life happens and as it evolved, I really became aware of, the reasons why I was kind of, that burnt out, successful professional on paper, but really feeling empty inside when I left my corporate job. That was back in 2017, because of a toxic work environment, because of a toxic person in the workplace who sort of left me on my knees, who left me and completely burnt out. And then really my journey to take ownership for that, my role in that. And that's why the title ended up being How to Tame the Bully Inside and Out. And so fast forward a couple of years, in 2021, I was working with a coach, and she kept saying to me that what's coming through for her is more. So Raw, MOAR, and SOAR. It's like a trilogy. And so that was kind of the seed was planted, but then I didn't really think much about it. And then, in 2023, and this is again my experiences as a sort of entrepreneur and doing contracts with big organizations, just seeing this burnout epidemic in the workplace. People are completely running on empty, running on fumes, and it's just really heartbreaking to see, when people come to work every day, going through the motions. There's almost even, you can kind of see in their eyes how lost they are, and they're kind of working from paycheck to paycheck. And that really was the main catalyst. And, I started my own journey to move back to South Africa in the beginning of 2023. And that's when I started writing in earnest, but then life happened. So I put the book on hold. And so when I found myself back in 2023 in that sort of place of burnout, and I remember at the time having a conversation with you, Petra, about even labeling it as a bit of a dark night of the soul. That was kind of when I realized I was still playing by that old playbook, that playbook of hustle, 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 push, 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 go, go, go. And that's when, I started writing more in earnest. And I really sort of reflected on my own experience of changing my own playbook in terms of, yes, we are meant for more, but we are also more than enough, and believing deep down that you are more than enough, so that you can make those big dreams and goals and, just big visions possible.
I mean, what a journey. As an author myself, I know that the timing, because it's interesting that you had the idea, but then you wrote it later, and it's almost like there's some timing that happens that's outside of our control, because we have to learn the thing or gain the new perspective ourselves. Like, we are the sample size person that's being experimented on, right? And then we see it out in the world and we're like, oh my goodness, this is everywhere. And then you start, of course, writing in earnest. And I'm curious about the title, because it's not more like MORE, it's MOAR. So talk me through that. Like, what does the title actually capture for you?
Let me get the copy of the book. It's literally there, and I don't know. I've moved, so let me just get the copy quick. Yeah, that more spelling was a bit of a stroke of genius, and I'll tell you how that happened. But yeah, that's the book. So beautiful. It was so wonderful last week to hold it in my hands for the first time. And then, how to play to win without burning out. So MOAR, I literally had the brief to my cousin, Christy, who illustrated the cover, was, MOAR, and I still spelt it MOAR on WhatsApp. I mean, MORE on WhatsApp. And then I said it meaning MORE on WhatsApp. And then he replied, and he's like, oh, I'm assuming you mean MOAR exclamation mark. And I'm like, no, I didn't, but this is incredible, because it is absolutely, raw, as you can see, the first book, more, and then soar. But that's gonna be a few years. As you say, you've got to live the curriculum first. I literally walked into the gym this morning with my personal trainer, and she said, "Oh, Marilise, I have a story for you," and she walked me to a copy of my book. She's got a copy of the book in her gym, and she said to me, "Can you see that? Can you see that? Read that for me." So it's like, how to play to win without burning out. She's like, that's what we're going to do today. But because your message is for you first, right?
Yeah, always. It's incredible. And you never know when you have the seed of an idea what it is that you're going to learn. So for you, you obviously had that light bulb moment that, like, oh, I can think about this differently. So what does that title mean to you now?
So it absolutely is this idea that more for me is about how I show up. So it's very much about, I am meant for more, but I have nothing to prove. I am good enough. I am more than enough. And that means 3 words: present, peaceful, and powerful. And that's how I want to show up in every moment of every day that matters. Present, peaceful, and powerful.
Which is very different than frazzled survival, pushing, and like you said, hustle culture, which is still very much rewarded or glamorized in many ways, but things are changing. So who would you say this book is for? Like, who's the reader? Who do you want to impact the most?
it is absolutely that individual who's sort of sat, at their desk and with that deep kind of feeling of there must be more to work and life than this. So whether you're an individual, whether you're working kind of as an individual who, and I use the word awakening because you're awakened to the fact, that there's more to life, and, the things that are important to us when we're younger, the paycheck, the role, the titles, the status, keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, that's a stage we all go through, but then things shift and we pivot. And, I had that sort of transition sort of as I was going into my 40s, now almost 50s, but it's that whole kind of transitional period for someone who really are beginning to really ask, what is important to me? What do I want? And really, who do I want to become? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? And what's the legacy that I want to leave? And of course, the leaders that care about culture and about creating thriving cultures, because at the end of the day, the leaders are the culture of the organization. So how are you as a leader showing up? So first of all, start with you in terms of, your own well-being. And then helping your teams thrive and ultimately creating a culture where everybody can thrive. And what I mean by that is people can show up fully, authentically as their whole selves.
So this is obviously super personal for you and has a huge ripple effect and impact on both individuals and leaders, workplaces. But so I know a little bit of your story, and like you said, the dark night of the soul, but was there a moment for you, like an aha moment where you were like, oh my goodness, something has to change. I've got to put something in place myself. And then of course that inspired the book. But what were the symptoms for you? Like what was going on?
Yeah, so I think it was a series of moments, but it was really that another wake-up call, another mirror moment. I call them mirror moments, where you really have to hold the mirror up and get so super honest with yourself. And that's tough. But it was that moment when we actually moved into our house. It was the 18th of December, 2023. We've just built our dream house in our dream location. And I walked in and I couldn't actually love it. And it was nothing. It wasn't this kind of fantasy picture that I had in my head. It was just, another thing, another event, another moment. And excuse me.
You've been working towards that for so long, right?
Well, exactly. But it was that sort of you work towards something that big, and you're working towards a dream, and you find yourself in that place where it just doesn't feel the way you expected it to feel, and so that was a very big moment. And then over the course of 2 or 3 months, I had many moments where I just could not get myself to move, to take action, to do stuff. I was just so tired. I mean, that year, that 2023, we moved countries. Heini and Heinrich, my eldest son, was still in London for 6 months. I came back to South Africa for Andreas, our youngest son, to put him into school here. So we were literally crossing over in the air to see our kids for the first 6 months. We built the house, business had to carry on. It was just a very, very chaotic year, and in a way, a perfect storm. But what I realized I was doing is I was throwing even more onto my plate. I kept myself busy so that I didn't have to deal with the important things. And I think the important things were things like the trauma around this big life event of moving countries, of actually deciding after 18 years to move back from England to South Africa. So it was easy to make myself busy. The better thing to do would have been to really live into the moment and put less on the plates and just have a year of transitioning and then start putting all these additional projects on the plate. So, I mean, in hindsight, you kind of can say it's a perfect storm, but what is the cost? And the cost to my health, I think, was probably where I would say, if I had to do it again, I would really be a lot less, have a lot less urgency around it has to happen now,
But I think this also reflects like the world that we're in. We're in a capitalist society that is more is better, like go, 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 right? And so for many people, there's always the next thing to strive for, right? So you do this one thing and then you're like, okay, this isn't enough. You know, what's the next thing? What's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing? And almost waiting for your happiness. Oh, I'll be happy when the house is
Yes,
built and everything's settled and everything's good. And what we do is we avoid kind of maybe the feelings that we might, you know, there's going to be some grief, some letting go, some
exactly.
frustration, like all these pieces. But it's almost like when the threat of those feelings is there, that's when we get busier because we're like, oh, it's a lot, so let's just do more
Yes,
stuff, right? And
yes.
so you're noticing in hindsight that, like you said, presence and you know actually a source of power. Um, do you think you're living differently now, just with that insight, or how hard is that, or are there practices that you use to help you live differently?
I love that you asked that question because I've had the most amazing week of launching my book, and um, I honestly had this moment where I was actually reflecting on how far I have come to actually have this big moment and actually not make the moment so big, not having this expectation about what it's going to be and what it's not going to be, and just banking it and knowing that okay, now we can carry on and tomorrow's another day and we move through it. And it was just such a yes, I had those old stories come up, you know, those old pulls. You know, there was a point 2 weeks before the book launch where I just thought, I'm not going to do this launch. I'm not even going to send the invites to people. I literally had to force myself to send the invites out because in my mind, it was just all a flop. It was just all not going to work. Like it was just, I just was looking for excuses, I guess, to self-sabotage, to not make it work. And yeah, and it was an option. I chose to have the book launch. I could have chosen to say, I could have just said, oh guys, it's not happening anymore. But I managed to carry on with it, and it was a kind of a life force energy. It was more of an aligned energy because I really truly wanted it. And for me it was, the tough thing was, okay, now I'm actually celebrating me, like the spotlight's on me, and I don't really want that. But at the same time, this is actually not about me. This is about so much more. And so it was a very, very interesting full circle moment for me, just the last week with the launch and everything. And the contrast to how I felt with launching the first book, you know, that expectation, or moving into my new house, that expectation. I had a lot less of that this time around.
Well, and studies say, don't they, that happiness is that, you know, or the lack of happiness is the gap between reality and expectation, you know.
Yes.
But if we actually just accept what is and we are practice gratitude and we connect with who's there, and also don't make emotions wrong. Like if we feel grief, or if there's a bit of a dip or sadness or the whole range of the emotion wheel, right? That's okay. But I think society is very much, especially if we see well-being influencers and like, if you do, you know, these 20 things before 7 a.m., then you're going to be crushing it and feeling good, right? And there's, right? And I actually think the well-being industry has something to answer for. And hey, I am partial to a personal development YouTube clip and all the things. I love it. It does push me in certain ways. But yet I have this understanding that that's not everything. And if there's a day where I'm just like, oh, I just feel a bit low, I'm gonna call someone, I'm gonna eat some cake, like fine, right? We need more compassion for ourselves. So I love that you
Yeah.
said this is not just about you, it's about more than you, because more is the word of the day. And so let's just get into that well-being crisis, as you and me have both talked about, and think about, what are you seeing in organizations, or what did you see in organizations that made you think just enough, like something's got to give, I've got to write about this, something's got to change? What were those moments for you?
Oh, the standout thing is that people don't feel like they've got a choice. And I actually have a chapter in the book where I say, you always have a choice. And it's a tough truth, right? But it's a moment where you're like, okay, first you've got to believe that you've got a choice, that even if you don't choose something, you choose something. You know, it's such an important concept. And then to own your choices and to be more intentional about your choices. And so what I see is this epidemic of people almost like feeling like they have no control over their choices. They're just in an organization and they're at the mercy of the culture or the structures or the leadership. And it's like, just, yes, I can understand, you know, when your livelihood is dependent on that paycheck every month. And, you know, we have to start empowering people to actually say what they want and speak up. And so the whole well-being crisis for me is an energy crisis. It's, you know, we all have X amount of energy that we can use every day. I mean, you generate energy and then you use your energy, and it's how you actually then spend that energy. You know, where do you focus your time? Where do you focus your energy? And for me, it's about the challenge that I see is that people just are not intentional about how they actually show up and how they spend their time, and it's this deflating kind of feeling of, you know, I just do not have control, I do not have a choice, and I'm just kind of living paycheck to paycheck. I'm going through the motions. And unfortunately, Petra, I don't know what you see, but I see this in the majority of people. It's very few people that actually have that aliveness and that vibrancy where they show up aligned with their purpose, with their values, and really kind of make the day work, winning the day. You know, I struggle with that because I work with so many organizations where you see the motions piece, the going through the motions piece, and for me that's really heartbreaking.
Let's go a little bit deeper into this idea of choice, because I totally agree with you. And I think in this day and age, like you said, not making a choice is making a choice. And we're seeing restructures, we're seeing redundancies, we're seeing life happen to people that might not be in their control in some ways. And then suddenly they're like, oh my goodness, I have to reskill or adapt or think about these things. But give us some examples. Like, so say somebody's like, cost of living crisis, I've got dependents, I'm maybe living in an expensive city, like I maybe have bills, or maybe I'm over consuming things that I don't need because there's, you know, billions of dollars and pounds is spent convincing us that we need something outside of ourselves to do better, right? What kind of choice? So that person's working in a corporate organization, maybe with a toxic boss, like in your first book, right? What choices do they really have, in your opinion? I know it's in your book, but talk us through some ideas.
Yeah, and it's such a personal question, you know, because everybody's circumstances are so unique that it would be reckless of me to get sort of broad brush advice. You know, I remember,
sure.
I actually remember getting advice from an entrepreneur when I just left my corporate career about, oh, you've got to go all in, you know, quit everything else and go all in. And I'm like, no, but I've got mouths to feed. I don't have the luxury of going all in. So I've been working a job and building my business, you know. Yeah. So that was a very intentional choice for me because, of course, you know, that slows things down. So you've always got to weigh up things. And I think that for me is the important thing, is about, you know, what do you want? And I think this is the question we all have to ask ourselves. You know, I can't answer that for you, but it's a case of you've got to start getting really honest, and again holding that mirror up and really giving yourself permission to tap into the kind of like, and I do this because this is a feeling, right? It's a heart-centered approach in terms of what would I love? You know, what do I want? What would I love? And you may not kind of wake up tomorrow morning and wave a magic wand and that's there. It might take years, but at least if you start really concentrating on the question, the better question of who am I? You know, how do I want to show up? What do I want and why? Then you start moving the needle, because then you can actually start moving in that direction, whether that takes a month, 6 months, a year, 10 years. It's a case of at least now you move in a trajectory. So your immediate circumstances may not change. You may still have to tolerate that toxic bully in the workplace, but at least you start shifting your energy away from that, because you kind of like, you can choose not to be the victim as well, and you can limit your time with that individual. And I know sometimes it's going to feel hard, and yes, it will feel hard. And that's what's so important about what you said earlier, Petra, about not dismissing the emotions. You've got to feel how that feels. And if it sucks, it sucks. That's okay. But it's start redirecting your energy towards the things that matter to you, in terms of how you want to show up, in terms of what you want, and in terms of your why. I think that's the best advice I can give. I'd be interested to know what you'd say to that,
Yeah.
Petra.
Well, I completely echo what you're saying. What do you want is such a pivotal question. And sometimes we immediately assume it's like the really big things, like I want the new house, or I want to live over here. And those big dreams are the North Star, and they're absolutely important. But I also want to then bring it down to the micro level of, how do I want to feel each day? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What do I want my relationships to be like? What do I want my health, and to your point, energy feel like? And so again, the change curve often doesn't feel like change, right? At the beginning, and over time it compounds. So there is a bit of trust in the process at the beginning. And so when I was in early kind of addiction recovery, I couldn't dream of running my own business and my kids being older and all the things that are happening now, traveling to speak. It was too big. It was too far out from what I was experiencing. But I knew that I didn't want to feel awful each day. I knew I needed to get sober that day. I needed to go to sleep without a drink. That was it. So they have this beautiful thing in addiction recovery, which is the Just for Today card that just fits in your little wallet, right? And I would just read that every day. And it was, just for today, I'm going to be the best version of myself. Just for today, I'm going to go to bed sober, be the best parent I can be, whatever it was, right? And so sometimes we underestimate what those tiny things each day will do. So it might be, I'm going to look after my sleep routine so that I can manage this toxic boss better. I'm going to have 1 hour a week where I don't listen to headphones or music or anything. I'm just going to journal or walk and reflect on who I am and what I want, right? So it's those tiny things that then compound over time. And hey, not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone is cut out for being a business owner. And I think we've sort of glorified that side of it. But not everyone wants to think about accountants and people to pay and how to run all the marketing and sales, right? They just want to do really good work, and they want to do it in a safe and autonomous way. And so it might be beginning to think about, a different place to work, or managing upwards. Like, let's challenge the system and actually see if we can help create because from a culture perspective, sometimes we are part of the problem without realizing it. So we spend all of our spare time complaining, we're talking about the toxic boss, and actually we're keeping the loop going in the energy of culture, right? Anyway, I could talk a lot about this, but I absolutely echo what you're saying.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think it's so easy to complain. It's so easy to be the victim. And
that's part of the problem.
That is a huge problem, and I feel really strongly about that, where we have to start bringing better solutions. And I know we don't always feel strong enough to do it, and I'm not downplaying the fact that there are people out there, people listening, who might be in a very, very serious burnout situation, or dealing with a very, very tricky relationship at work or at home, because the two things work together, right? So you can never divorce work and life. They ultimately integrated. So I think I'm not downplaying it, but I'm always saying, you have the choice, or you have the choice whether you want to be the victim, and how you respond. And I say that as someone who's also recovered from eating disorder, and that one day thing is so profound. I mean, you say it's a little thing, but it's a profound thing, because it's just getting through today. And that's how I think we should all live our lives every day. and you know, asking ourselves, have I actually showed up today as the best version of me? And if you didn't, it's okay, but at least you have that sort of like, you know, temperature check, and just to sort of then say, okay, so what might I do differently tomorrow? And that could be a daily routine. And, you know, I always say the little things are not the big things, the little things are everything. So we have to start focusing on those tiny habits, those small daily routines that we can then repeat, so that they do become the habits that we want.
Consistency, discipline, of
Yes.
course. Now, in chapter 1, I was so excited you quoted my book on digital well-being. And so I'm curious, and we're kind of segueing perfectly because we're thinking about habits and routines and the little things. What made my message around that kind of relevant to the MOAR topic and the journey you're taking people on?
I mean, our worlds cross over so much, Petra, in terms of, you know, you know, that I work a lot in cybersecurity. So I see the digital crisis firsthand, you know, and if I just reflect for a moment on, you know, the teams, the people that work in cybersecurity who are always on, you know, 24/7, and it's almost like, you know, acting as a first responder to a crisis, you know, because when there is an incident in an organization, you know, when you get attacked by, you know, the cyber criminals. It's literally like you are literally fighting a battle. It's fighting a war, and you on 24/7. And the industry is not yet regulated to protect people's well-being. So you can literally see people working through these crises for days and days and days on end, you know. So I see it from a very, very severe kind of industry, cybersecurity, tech, digital perspective. And you obviously addressing it very holistically from a day-to-day, using devices. But for me the importance of, as you say, there's daily habits where you can just have a little bit of a detox from the screen, and it's being intentional about it. And so the meant for more, but the being more than enough. And I think the more than enough piece plays strongly into the digital well-being piece, because you now have social media and you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, you know, so it's so easy to fall into that sort of hole of I'm not enough in whichever shape or form, you know, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not thin enough, not, you know, clever enough. It's just really that, and that for me was the strong tie in with your work is really about how we really protect ourselves and our well-being, because, you know, we you know, that comparison is the thief of all joy piece for me is super important. Yeah,
I mean, what a world that we're in. And since I wrote the book, I've been at more and more like intimate settings, roundtables, senior cybersecurity professionals, and my goodness, that high pressure world, but also sometimes the lack of safety and trust, and so the blame culture, if something does get through, you know, is the more negative way that maybe sometimes it goes. So let's get back to the book, because I just love everything, and we don't have that much time, but I have more questions to ask you. So your book takes readers on what you call the Roar to More hero's journey, and I love a hero's journey. So what does that look like in practice for people if they were to go on that journey?
Yes. So the whole book is structured around the Roar for More hero's journey. And so chapter 4 is where I introduce it. And then chapters 5 to 9 is actually the Roar for More hero's journey. So the actual 5 chapters, they spell out more. Okay. So chapter 5 is Map Your Adventure. Chapter 6 is Open Your Life Force. Chapter 7 is Act with Heart. And then chapter 8 is Rise Through the Fire. And then chapter 9 is Roar for More. So you return as the hero, having learned the lessons, ready to share your wisdom. And so map your adventure, open your life force, act with heart, rise through the fire, roar for more. And so that was a kind of a nice way for me to capture what the hero's journey is all about, and to and specifically the section around acting with heart and rising through the fire is really where you kind of you're faced with your greatest fears, your darkest kind of like, you know, deepest sort of traumas, and that's where the acting with heart and the present and the peaceful and the powerful new playbook that I had to sort of learn becomes really, really relevant and important.
And I love the map of the hero's journey, and sometimes we only see it in hindsight, right? Because when you're in it, it's just so dark and so intense, and we're like, I don't know if I can make it through this. And we're talking about burnout, but it could be mental health issues, it could be physical illness, it could be a job loss, it could be a divorce, or your kids moving away. Like, there's so many factors that can stack and affect people. You talk about transformation from the inside out. Yes. What does that mean? What can people think about when and why does it matter to come from the inside out?
Yeah, and I think it's you know, when you say it out loud, it sounds so obvious, but it's actually about, it's really about having the courage. I think it's courageous to actually have a look inside, and so our outer worlds are 100% a reflection of our inner worlds, you know. And I think it's Mel Robbins who said once, I heard, if we all had a little antenna on our heads, our friends and people that can hear what we say to ourselves in our heads would actually run a mile. Because, you know, we're just
never
so
say it to them.
No,
we would never use the same, yeah.
Exactly. So we're so unkind to ourselves. The way we speak to ourselves, we're so hard on ourselves. We're so awful to ourselves. And so until we start changing that inner narrative, that inner conversation, that inner roar, we're always going to have issues in the outside world with our relationships, with, you know, motivation, with so many different things. So inside out transformation, I'm so passionate about it, because you've got to change your inner world. You've got to sort of, and it's the hardest work in the world. I mean, Petra, you can vouch for this, because you've got to confront some really serious, it's very confrontational. And I think a lot of people just kind of like disassociate because they're like, it's too hard, I'm not going to go there. But that's really the start of transformation. That's the start of you becoming who you were born to be. And that's why it has to start with you. It has to begin with you.
Well, and it's a good reminder of like, what is the point of transformation? Like, what is on the other side? Because when we just think about like transformation and how tough it is and facing ourselves, it's like, ugh, why would I want that? Let me just have a drink on the weekend and, you know, numb out and do social media and, you know, but it's on the other side of our fear, right? That the most magical things can happen. And it's sort of trusting that process and knowing that we are meant for more. I mean, what is one thing that you want every reader to walk away with? What's your hope?
It really, for me, the whole book is an invitation into possibility. And I really want people to feel like this is possible for me, you know, for me as well. And, you know, I share my journey in the book, and it's kind of one cycle of the hero's journey. Like, it's not even my whole life, you know, I've come full circle so many times. But it's really that invitation into possibility, and, you know, sparking that you know, inner courage, that inner just that little thing, like igniting, I would say, that spark, that fire inside of you, to really just give yourself permission to go on that hero's journey and to do something for you. You know, this is really, as you say, on the other side of that transformation. It's beautiful and it's magic, but it's not going to be a smooth ride. We have to accept that. And so, yeah, it's really just, you know, a very, very big invitation to go on your own hero's journey.
Well, and many of us are in it anyway, whether we like it or not, right? So I found the book to be super hopeful right? And so to give you the trust and the tools that even if you're in the depths of, oh my God, I don't see a way forward, or I don't understand what's going on right now, or I feel awful, that actually that is a piece of the journey, right? And
Yes.
actually once you go through the process that you've laid out, there's this, oh, sometimes courage doesn't look like courage. It looks
Yeah.
like fear, but doing it anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, right? And so there's this beautiful thing about courage you kind of see in hindsight or reflected back by other people. It's so brave that you've put yourself out there, for example, and that you've put everything on paper and sort of are giving this gift to the world. But I imagine there's been moments where it didn't feel like that. It was like, I've got a word count, or, oh, how do I put this out there, right? So
Yes.
finally, before we kind of wrap up, I'm curious. I've endorsed the book, and I 100% kind of endorse my own endorsement because I think everyone should read it. Whether you're an individual who's in the entrepreneurial space and you're trying to figure out how to get that spark back, whether you're in the workplace and you're feeling burnt out, or whether you're just feeling that flatness and you're
Yeah.
just like, I don't really know why it is. There's no toxic boss, but I'm just going through the motions. What is the point, right? It's like any of those people would really get so much out of this. So, I mean, what do you hope is the ripple effect? So there's your story, there's your immediate connections, but what do you want to ripple out when with the MOAR concept?
I really want to see more people show up with, with kind of a led by their hearts. I feel like, especially in a work setting, in a corporate setting, we've been so conditioned to live in our heads. And I think if we can all start kind of giving ourselves permission to live more from our hearts, to give more kind of not just compassion, but it's that sort of compassion to self, compassion to others, but then generosity. I really, in the last chapter of the book, I return with the 4 superpowers, and they are the power of perspective and the power of compassion, which is kind of all related to winning the inner game. And then, the power of voice and the power of generosity, which is kind of more the outer game. And so the compassion and generosity, the 2 themes in there for me is very much about, how we make the world a better place. And that really is my hope. Baby steps, 1 step at a time, but it is really about, someone said to me the other day, it's not little, it's little until it isn't. And that's what you mean, I think, with this ripple effect. It really, again, it starts with you as one individual showing up a little bit differently because you're giving yourself permission to act more with heart and to be more generous. So it's compassion to self, compassion to others, generosity. What's my impact? What's my legacy? What do I want to, bring to the world? And then to share that with other people so that we can start really, 1 person becomes 2 people, becomes 3 people, and that ripple effect becomes so important.
And the timing for this couldn't be better. When we think about the world, we think about politics, we think about what people are experiencing,
Heavy.
the timing is just fire. And we can't even plan these things sometimes, right? But for everyone, buy the book, get the book, go through the workbook. The ripple effect for me is sometimes it's years later that someone will contact me on LinkedIn or meet me at a talk and say, that one thing that you said, or that I watched, years ago, and I don't even remember saying it or doing it or what was happening. In fact, I probably had a vulnerability hangover and was like, should I even have put myself out there that way, And then you get this feedback loop and you're like, oh, I'm living my mission and my purpose. And Marilise, you are living your mission and purpose. And I'm so proud of you and what you're putting out into the world. And I'm going to put it back over to you. Thank you so much for answering all these questions.
Oh, thank you so much. And I do want people to be able to find you as well, if they would love to connect with you. So before I go and close us out, I'd just love you to say, where can people reach you if they would love to?
Oh, thank you. Well, LinkedIn is my happy place. So if anyone wants my content on workplace culture and all of that, digital well-being, it's there. And my website's my name, petravelzeboer.com. So find me there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And everyone, thank you for joining us today. If you loved the conversation, please do subscribe. And, we always bring these sorts of conversations. This is very much, a place where we talk about work well-being, but ultimately it's about life and about, creating your best life. And so, if you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is also my happy place. And my website is Marilies de Villiers Basson. So, very, very simple to find. And this is really, just to remind you, you've come here. This is where we roar for more so that we can all soar. No more playing small. Own your magic. Your message matters. Bye for now.